The sound system failure was about to destroy Queen's concert until Freddie Mercury accomplished the impossible. That night, Freddie proved that a true artist doesn't need microphones, amplified sound, or technology. With raw talent and charisma, he hypnotized 70,000 people and showed the world what pure, unfiltered artistry looks like. Before we dive into this incredible story, make sure to hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell, because what you're about to discover will show you why Freddie Mercury understood that the most powerful technology in the world is the human voice when it's powered by pure passion and determination. January 19, 1985. Rock in Rio, Brazil. Queen was headlining the largest rock festival in history, with over 350,000 people attending across multiple days. Tonight, 70,000 fans had packed into the Cidade do Rock venue specifically to see Queen perform. The energy was electric, the anticipation was palpable, and everything seemed perfect for what was supposed to be one of the greatest concerts in rock history. But sometimes the universe has other plans. The day had started with minor technical issues. Sound engineer Trip Calaf had been troubleshooting problems with the main mixing board since the afternoon soundcheck. The humid Brazilian climate, combined with the massive power demands of entertaining hundreds of thousands of people, was pushing every piece of equipment to its absolute limits. "We were dealing with challenges I'd never faced before," Calaf later revealed in a rare interview. "The scale of rock in Rio was unprecedented. We were trying to deliver stadium-quality sound to a crowd that was bigger than most cities. Every cable, every amplifier, every circuit was operating beyond its designed capacity." Dr. Marcus Silva, an acoustics engineer who was consulting on the festival's sound design, understood the technical challenges they were facing. When you're dealing with crowds of this size, sound doesn't just travel. It becomes a living thing that can work with you or against you. The equipment has to be perfect, because there's no room for error when you're trying to reach 70,000 people. Queen had been aware of the technical challenges, but had confidence in their experienced crew. They had performed in massive venues before, dealt with difficult conditions, and always found a way to deliver an unforgettable show. Freddie Mercury, in particular, was known for his ability to connect with audiences regardless of the circumstances. The concert began magnificently. Queen launched into their opening songs with their usual precision and energy. Freddie commanded the massive stage, his voice soaring over the crowd, every note crystal clear through the powerful sound system. The Brazilian audience was legendary for their passion, and tonight they were singing along to every word, creating a wall of sound that complemented Queen's performance perfectly. For the first 45 minutes, everything was flawless. The band was tight, the sound was perfect, and 70,000 people were completely absorbed in one of the best live performances they had ever witnessed. Then, during the middle of Somebody to Love, disaster struck. Without warning, the main sound system simply died. Not gradually, not with crackling or distortion that might have given the crew time to compensate. One moment, the music was filling the massive venue, and the next moment there was nothing but the acoustic sound of instruments designed to be amplified, trying desperately to reach an audience that was too far away to hear them. The silence that followed was deafening in its own way. 70,000 people suddenly found themselves straining to hear the band they had traveled from across South America to see. Brian May's guitar, Roger Taylor's drums, and John Deacon's bass became distant whispers in the vast open-air venue. Most performers would have stopped immediately, apologized to the crowd, and waited for the technical crew to restore power. The standard protocol for major sound system failures was to halt the performance until the problem could be resolved, even if it took hours. But Freddie Mercury had never been bound by standard protocols. Standing center stage at Rock in Rio, with 70,000 people suddenly unable to hear Queen's music, Freddie Mercury faced a choice that would define not just the remainder of the concert, but his legacy as a performer. The technical crew was already frantically working to restore power to the sound system, but their initial assessments suggested it could take anywhere from minutes to hours to solve the problem. Behind him, his bandmates had stopped playing, waiting for direction. The logical thing to do was apologize to the crowd, explain the technical difficulties, and ask for patience while the problem was resolved. Most artists would have had no choice but to accept that technology had defeated them. But as Freddie looked out at 70,000 disappointed faces, something extraordinary happened. Instead of seeing a problem, he saw an opportunity. Instead of viewing the sound system failure as a limitation, rebellion. He saw it as liberation. Without any amplification, without any electronic assistance, Freddie Mercury began to sing. His natural voice, powerful and trained through years of performance, cut through the humid Brazilian air like a blade. It wasn't loud enough to reach every person in the massive venue, but it was clear enough that those in the front sections could hear him perfectly. "Can you hear me?" he called out, his voice carrying as far as acoustics would allow. The response from the crowd was immediate. Thousands of voices shouting yes in both English and Portuguese. But Freddie wasn't satisfied with reaching only a portion of his audience. What he did next would become one of the most innovative solutions in live performance history. Instead of trying to sing loudly enough for everyone to hear him directly, Freddie turned the audience itself into his sound system. "I'm going to sing something," he announced to those who could hear him, "and I want you to repeat it back as loud as you can. Then you," he pointed to different sections of the crowd, "sing it to them. We're going to make sure everyone hears this music, even if we have to do it ourselves." Dr. Patricia Williams, a crowd psychology expert who was studying the Rock in Rio phenomenon, later described what she witnessed. What Freddie accomplished was remarkable from both a technical and psychological standpoint. He transformed 70,000 individual audience members into a massive human sound system, with each person becoming both receiver and transmitter of the musical message. The first song he chose was "Love of My Life," a ballad that didn't require the driving force of electric instruments. As Freddie began to sing the opening lines, the front sections of the crowd listened intently, then turned to repeat his words to the people behind them. What started as a desperate improvisation quickly became something magical. Wave after wave of voices carried Freddie's song throughout the massive venue, with each section adding their own passion and emotion to the performance. The acoustic guitar that Brian May played could be heard clearly in the sudden absence of amplification, creating a gentle accompaniment to this unprecedented human chorus. Roger Taylor provided rhythm by clapping his hands, a sound that carried surprisingly well in the open-air venue. But the most remarkable thing was watching the crowd's reaction. Instead of being disappointed by the technical failure, they became energized by their new role as active participants in the performance. They weren't just watching Queen anymore. They were becoming part of Queen. What happened next at Rock in Rio transcended typical concert experience and entered the realm of pure human connection through music. As Freddie Mercury continued to sing without amplification, using the crowd as his sound system, something unprecedented began to unfold across the massive venue. The audience's role evolved from simply repeating Freddie's words to actively interpreting and enhancing them. Different sections of the crowd began harmonizing with each other, creating layers of vocal texture that no sound system could have produced. The natural delay caused by voices traveling across the venue created an echo effect that was more beautiful than any electronic processing. It was like watching a massive choir that had never rehearsed together suddenly find perfect harmony, observed Dr. Silva. The physics of sound in that space, combined with the natural rhythm of human voices, created acoustic effects that were impossible to reproduce electronically. Freddie, recognizing the magic that was happening, abandoned any thought of waiting for the sound system to be repaired. Instead, he leaned into this new form of performance, choosing songs that worked best in this intimate yet massive setting. When he began "We Are the Champions," the crowd's response was overwhelming. 70,000 people sang the familiar lyrics with such passion and unity that the sound could be heard for miles around the venue. People who weren't even at the concert stopped in the streets of Rio to listen to this massive human choir celebrating Queen's music. Brian May later described the experience. "I've never felt anything like it. Usually when we perform, there's this barrier between us and the audience. The technology, the amplification, the production. But when all of that disappeared, we were just four musicians and 70,000 music lovers sharing something pure and immediate." The technical crew, meanwhile, was working frantically to restore power to the sound system. But as they listened to what was happening on stage, some of them began to wonder if they should even bother. What Freddie had created was more intimate and more powerful than any amplified performance could have been. Trip Calaf, watching from his position at the mixing board, made a decision that would be controversial among audio engineers for years to come. When power was finally restored to the main system, after 35 minutes, he chose not to turn it back on immediately. What was happening out there was magic, he later explained. Freddie had turned a technical disaster into an artistic triumph. "I wasn't about to interfere with that by suddenly blasting amplified sound over this incredible acoustic experience. experience. The performance continued for another 20 minutes in this acoustic format, with Freddie leading 70,000 people through an intimate concert that felt more like a massive family gathering than a rock show. Songs that had been written for stadiums and arenas became lullabies sung by a choir larger than most cities. The most powerful moment came when Freddie chose to perform "Somebody to Love," the song that had been playing when the sound system failed. As he sang the opening lines, a cappella, his voice somehow stronger and more expressive than it had been with amplification, the crowd responded with such passion that the sound was picked up by radio stations broadcasting from miles away. When the song reached its climactic chorus, something unprecedented happened. All 70,000 people sang in perfect unison, their voices combining to create a sound that was both thunderously powerful and incredibly intimate. The acoustic phenomenon created natural harmonies and overtones that gave the music a depth and richness that no studio recording could capture. Dr. Williams later wrote, "What we witnessed was the democratization of performance. The boundary between performer and audience completely dissolved. Everyone became both artist and audience member simultaneously." As the acoustic performance reached its natural conclusion, Freddie made a decision that surprised everyone, including his bandmates. Instead of having the sound system restored for the remainder of the show, he chose to end the concert with this unprecedented acoustic experience. "Ladies and gentlemen," he announced, his voice now carrying easily across the venue, as 70,000 people strained to hear every word, "Tonight you have given me the greatest gift any performer could receive. You have shown me that music doesn't need technology. Music just needs hearts that are willing to share it." The standing ovation that followed lasted for nearly 20 minutes, but it wasn't just applause. It was 70,000 people singing Queen songs, a cappella, creating their own concert that continued long after the band had left the stage. The Rock in Rio acoustic incident created immediate and lasting waves throughout the music industry. Within hours, bootleg recordings of the performance were circulating among musicians, sound engineers, and music lovers worldwide. Everyone wanted to hear how Queen had transformed a technical disaster into an artistic triumph. Music critics, initially skeptical about reports of a 70,000-person choir, became believers when they heard the recordings. Rolling Stone magazine called it the most intimate concert in rock history, while Billboard described it as a master class in audience engagement that every performer should study. The incident influenced how major artists approached their relationship with technology and audiences. Many performers began incorporating unplugged segments into their shows, inspired by Freddie's demonstration that acoustic performance could be more powerful than amplified sound. Sound engineers around the world began studying the Rock in Rio recordings to understand the acoustic phenomena that had occurred. The natural delay and echo effects created by voices traveling across the massive venue became the inspiration for new audio processing techniques that attempted to recreate those organic sounds electronically. Music schools began using the incident as a case study in improvisation and audience engagement. Students learned that technical problems could become creative opportunities when approached with the right mindset and preparation. Perhaps most significantly, the story changed how people thought about the relationship between technology and artistry. Freddie had proven that while technology could enhance performance, it could never replace the fundamental human connection that great music creates. The incident also influenced venue design and sound system planning. Engineers began building redundancies and backup systems specifically to prevent the kind of total failure that had occurred at Rock in Rio. But they also started designing spaces that could support acoustic performance when necessary. The acoustic and psychological implications of the Rock in Rio incident continued to influence research for decades. Dr. Marcus Silva became fascinated by the crowd dynamics he had witnessed and dedicated his career to studying what became known as collective acoustic phenomena. What happened at Rock in Rio challenged everything we thought we knew about large-scale audio engineering, Dr. Silva explained. 70,000 people had essentially become a single massive musical instrument, with Freddie Mercury as the conductor. The acoustic effects they created were impossible to reproduce artificially. Studies of the incident revealed that the human voice, when multiplied across tens of thousands of people, could create harmonic harmonic frequencies and overtones that enhanced rather than muddied the musical message. The natural timing variations between different sections of the crowd created rhythm patterns that were more complex and interesting than perfectly synchronized electronic sound. Psychologists studying the recordings noted that the audience's engagement levels were measurably higher during the acoustic portion of the concert than during the amplified segments. Without the barrier of technology between them and the performers, people felt more connected and invested in the musical experience. The Rock in Rio incident proved that participation enhances rather than diminishes musical appreciation, noted Dr. Williams. When people became active contributors to the performance rather than passive consumers, their emotional investment increased dramatically. The research influenced therapeutic music programs, with many facilities incorporating participatory singing based on the Rock in Rio model. Studies showed that patients who participated in group singing experienced greater emotional and physical benefits than those who simply listened to recorded music. Brain imaging studies conducted on similar group singing experiences showed increased activity in areas associated with social bonding, emotional regulation, and creative expression. The research provided scientific validation for what the Rock in Rio audience had experienced intuitively. The Rock in Rio experience marked a significant evolution in Freddie Mercury's understanding of performance and his relationship with audiences. Friends and colleagues noted that the incident reinforced his belief in the power of direct human connection through music. Mary Austin observed how the experience affected Freddie personally. That night in Brazil taught Freddie that his greatest instrument wasn't his voice. It was his ability to connect with people's hearts. When all the technology failed, that connection not only survived, it became stronger. Brian May noted how the incident influenced Queen's subsequent performances. After Rock in Rio, Freddie always included moments in our shows where he would connect directly with the audience without amplification. He understood that those intimate moments were often more powerful than our biggest rock anthems. The experience also influenced Freddie's approach to recording. Queen's subsequent albums included more acoustic elements and arrangements that emphasized the natural qualities of human voices over electronic processing. Roger Taylor observed that Freddie became more interested in the participatory aspects of performance. He started viewing audiences not as consumers of our music, but as collaborators in creating something unique every night. Rock in Rio taught him that the best concerts were conversations, not lectures. The incident also influenced how Freddie approached his eventual battle with AIDS. Jim Hutton witnessed how the lessons from Rock in Rio shaped Freddie's response to his illness. When Freddie got sick, he remembered that night when technology failed, but human connection triumphed. He understood that his real legacy wasn't in recordings or technology, but in the hearts of people who had shared music with him. Today, nearly 40 years after that remarkable evening in Brazil, the Rock in Rio acoustic incident continues to influence how we understand the relationship between technology, artistry, and human connection.
Music education programs worldwide use the Rock in Rio story as an example of creative problem solving and audience engagement. Students learn that technical limitations can become artistic opportunities when approached with creativity and confidence.
The incident has particular relevance in our increasingly digital world, where authentic human connection can sometimes feel lost amid technological mediation. Freddie's demonstration that technology should serve art rather than define it remains powerfully relevant. Acoustic music venues and unplugged concert series often reference the Rock in Rio incident as inspiration for their programming, understanding that intimate musical experiences can be just as powerful as large-scale productions. The story is also used in business schools as an example of how leaders can transform crises into opportunities through creative thinking and stakeholder engagement. Freddie's ability to turn a technical disaster into a triumph of human collaboration has become a case study in innovative problem solving. Trip Khalaf, now retired from sound engineering, continues to speak at industry conferences about the night he chose not to turn the power back on. That decision taught me that sometimes the best thing a technician can do is get out of the way of magic. Freddie showed us that the most sophisticated sound system in the world can't improve on 70,000 people singing from their hearts. The Rock in Rio acoustic incident serves as a powerful reminder that in our technology-dependent world, the most important connections are still fundamentally human. Freddie Mercury's response to technical failure demonstrated that creativity, passion, and authentic connection can overcome any technological limitation. The story has particular resonance in discussions about artificial intelligence and digital mediation of human experience. Freddie's triumph over technological failure reminds us that while technology can enhance human capability, it can never replace the fundamental power of genuine human expression and connection. Music therapy programs continue to use techniques inspired by the Rock in Rio incident, understanding that participatory musical experiences can be more healing and transformative than passive consumption of recorded music. Dr. Silva, now in his 70s, often concludes his lectures on acoustics with the Rock in Rio story. That night taught me that the most sophisticated audio equipment in the world is still the human voice powered by genuine emotion. Everything else is just amplification. The incident also serves as a reminder that preparation and technical excellence, while important, can never substitute for the ability to adapt, improvise, and connect with people in the moment. Freddie's triumph wasn't just about his voice. It was about his understanding that music is fundamentally about human beings sharing emotions and experiences. In our current era of social media, streaming services, and digital interaction, the Rock in Rio story reminds us that the most powerful technology for human connection is still the simple act of singing together, sharing emotions, and creating something beautiful as a community. If this story moved you the way it moved those 70,000 people in Brazil, please hit that like button and share it with anyone who believes in the power of human connection over technological dependence. What's the most powerful example of creativity overcoming technical limitations you've ever witnessed? Share your story in the comments below. And don't forget to subscribe for more incredible tales of how music transcends technology and creates moments of pure human connection. Because sometimes the most sophisticated sound system in the world is 70,000 hearts beating in harmony.